And now we check in from the morningline.substack.com, longtime Cincinnati Enquirer columnist, Paul Daugherty. And Dark, we start today, a guy that I know you've been around a lot. The sad news we heard yesterday about Thom Browning. I mean, look, we've had in this town guys like Joe Nuxall, Sean Casey. Those two guys come to mind as, and maybe it's unfair to say they're head and shoulders above everybody, but I think it's universally agreed that Browning in every way was very much in that same kind of category.
I don't think there's any question about that, Tom. In fact, I just got done talking with Charlie Frank, who is the director of the Reds Community Fund, and basically is in charge of a lot of the off-season stuff that the Reds do. And he called Thom Browning today's version of Joe Nuxall, and I don't think there's a higher compliment we can pay a professional athlete in this city than to call him today's Joe Nuxall. And Browning simply was a guy who would not say no. He did everything all the time, and the beauty of Thom Browning was that it was never an obligation. He didn't do it because he felt that he had to do it. He didn't do it for any sort of image purposes, because anybody who knew Thom Browning for more than 5 minutes knew that he didn't care a whole lot about image. He was who he was, but he did it because he enjoyed it. He loved being in the community. He was a true Cincinnatian in every shape of the word. I was trying to think, and you mentioned Sean Casey, and I hadn't thought of Sean for some reason. It's a good one. Of the number of people who kind of espouse what we like to think about ourselves in this town, and with the athletes that we appreciate for being like us. Bob Huggins came to mind, Pete Rose, Thom Browning, Sean Casey, and of course Nuxie, guys who are true to themselves, who are genuine people, who are hardworking, sliding head first types, but are deep down what Huggins used to call good people. Thom Browning was good people.
It's interesting. You start ripping off some of those names, and I had not thought of guys like Bob Huggins, although I'm certainly in full agreement with you on that. Look, it's not to sit here and say you can't be from the East Coast, you can't be from the West Coast, you can't be from Canada, you can't be from Mexico, all those things, because that obviously would be foolish. But I think it's interesting of the guys that you just ripped off, the names you just ripped off, Nuxall, Huggins, Browning, Casey. Those guys are all quote-unquote heartland of America kind of guys. You like to call them the flyover space sometimes. They're not from the coast. Huggins, an Ohio guy. Joe, an Ohio guy. Casey, a Pittsburgh guy. Thom Browning, a Wyoming guy. I don't know. Maybe it's where they grew up. Maybe it's the kind of people they grew up around that molded them into being the way they were.
Yeah, we're really good around here at spotting phonies. I think posers. Those guys were not that, and I don't know if it's a product of where they were raised or how they were raised or both. But they were guys. They were and are people who don't pretend to be something that they're not, and who are perceived correctly as having big hearts, and Thom Browning certainly had a big heart.
Doc, I think that many of us, when we look at guys, and look, every single one of us is an imperfect being. We all agree on that. Some of us have greater faults or greater addictions or greater issues or whatever it might be than others. Thom Browning was a very imperfect man on many, many levels. He necessarily didn't take great care of himself. He had a lot of tragedy in his life. He lost his wife back in March. His children have had some major issues. He and his wife, Debbie, were taking care of their grandkids and trying to raise them. But I think that's why so many people, or in part why so many people, continue to love Thom Browning no matter what. I guess you can make the same argument for Pete, although some of his stuff starts to get right on that border where I'm not sure where you cross it or not. But guys like Thom Browning, I think it was part of his imperfections that made us like him so much, or at least be able to relate to him. You think that's fair?
No, yeah, absolutely. He was a human. Another good thing about him, he never pretended to be anything else. I mean, he understood his flaws. A lot of people understood his flaws, and he never pretended that he didn't have them. I got these. I'm up front with it. I'm doing my best to take care of it. But yeah, I'm acknowledging who I am, good and bad.
All right, let's shift gears now to the Bengals. You wrote extensively. You have all the space you want now. They're at themorningline.substack.com. Doc, they're not always the most consistent bunch as far as, the game on Sunday, the difference between the first half and the second half on both sides of the ball. But at the end of the day, their 11-point win was the largest spread of any game in the National Football League last weekend. They got it going on down there. I mean, they really do. After some bumps in the road and 4-4, they got it going on right now.
Yeah, the only thing that could derail them, in my opinion, is more injuries. The injuries are starting to add up. I mean, Awuzie was already out. Now Hendrickson is out. Sam Hubbard apparently is out for about a month. Back in time for the postseason, but out a month. As good as they are, and as good as that depth has been, it has been terrific. You can't keep having these kinds of injuries to big time players and have the kind of success that they've been having. But you're right. They're playing as well as any team in the league, except maybe the Eagles, maybe as good as the Eagles. I don't know. And they're doing it everywhere. It's not just one side of the ball. It's both sides of the ball. They are well coached. They are motivated. They had no Super Bowl hangover. The offensive line has been almost completely healthy all year, which is just gigantic. Burrow, of course, has not missed a snap. They're not being given respect like they should be. And I usually don't care about this stuff that much. But they've not gotten the respect that they're due. Whenever the talk of MVP it comes up, it's Burrow is fourth. He's never better than fourth. Whenever talk of Super Bowls comes up, they're not really in focus yet. It's always Kansas City, Buffalo, Philly, maybe San Francisco, maybe even the Cowboys, though probably not after the other day. But this team is very good, and they picked a very nice time, same as last year, to play very well.
But don't you think, Doc, and we've had this conversation before, you've written about it for dozens of years. In many ways, whether it's that respect factor you're talking about, all the way trickled down to players throughout the history of your franchise going into the Hall of Fame. Until your franchise wins a Super Bowl, and for some reason Buffalo seems to be extinct from this, but until your franchise wins a Super Bowl, I'm not sure you ever really get the respect, no matter how good you play during the regular season, even if it's multiple seasons in the NFL.
Well, I really don't know what it is. I think the Bengals over the years have been an easy target. Mike Brown's frugality, the run that they had during the Marvin era of quote unquote bad boys. They've been low-hanging fruit for people who want to make fun of a franchise, and they still haven't dug themselves out from that. People were 5 years after the Bengals had basically expunged themselves of all of the criminal element, shall we say. It was still a topic nationally, and the same now in terms of them not being on a par with Kansas City, who they've beaten 3 times in the last year, Buffalo, and so on. So I think maybe just the national media are kind of slow on the uptake. I think that's especially true with the MVP stuff, because people who have watched Joe Burrow this year understand that he has had a Jalen Hurts type year. He's beaten Mahomes 3 times in a row, and Josh Allen has been up and down. I would slot Burrow number 2 right now behind Mahomes, and like I said, he's beaten him 3 times in the last 12 months, so maybe ahead of Mahomes. But anyway, I just think that's how the national media is. They're a bit slow on the uptake, a little lazy, a little too quick to take the easy angle on stuff.
All right, Doc, we as always, anything on your mind before I let you go? I mean, anything you want to talk about? We got Christmas coming up here. The whole, as a footnote. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Christmas is coming up. Anything on your mind that I haven't asked you about?
Yeah. And no, I'd like to say I got all kinds of stuff I want to talk about, but I really don't. I'm sitting here writing the tribute to Browning, and then I'll wax a little bit about the beauty of the internet when it comes to Christmas shopping, which I think the internet has brought joy back to Christmas, because I don't have to drive around a stupid mall parking lot for half an hour. I love that. I don't like malls. I never liked malls. I don't like being in malls. There's too many people. The internet, I can sit around in my underwear and you know what, Thom? People say that it kind of, shopping online kind of is not good for your creativity in terms of finding that special gift, right? I think it enhances your creativity. I mean, anything your imagination desires, you can find online.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, when you're walking around in a mall, there might be 1 or 2 things that even catch your eye, and you're just starting to get worn out because you can't find anything that does catch your eye more times than not. When you're sitting around bouncing around the internet, I mean, there's 8,000 ideas that never even popped into your mind, at least for me. That's all I can say about it.
I'm telling you, it's like being a good reporter, where you just keep asking questions and dialing phone numbers until you find what you need. Finding the perfect gift for someone is like that. It's like you go on the internet and you find a site that has cool stuff, and they may not have the exact cool stuff that you want, but maybe there's a link to another site that has cool stuff, and that site has what you want. I mean, I've been doing internet shopping ever since there was an internet. Back when people were worried about giving your credit card online and all that stuff, it probably was a big concern, but I didn't bother me, and I never never had my security compromised. Anyway, I've been doing it for like 15 years. I felt like Daniel Boone back then. Now I'm just like everybody else, and I'm telling you, online shopping has restored the joy to the Daugherty family Christmas.